Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
I'm very disappointed that we got beat today.
Us as players, we've got to be more professional.
We were ragged in a lot of areas.
We were not clean enough to get the win today. Our run defense and the attempts on our run offense we're not clearly on where we need to be right now.
I like where we are right now. I don't like the outcome of the last two ball games.
I like where we are. I don't like where we are. I don't think anybody knows exactly what they're saying on this topic, but I think one thing's for sure: the Cowboys are 1-2 and looking for answers after a game yesterday. Matt Roy, Don Harris, Chuck Miketinac on tap to talk all about it.
I'm not short. Matt's just a gargantuan of a human being.
We have to say this
6'9", 285.
That's also not true. We have to say this. We have to say this every podcast now.
Yeah.
I'm called the Mountain. I'm gonna get down to like 230, and he's gonna be like, "All right, he's 345." Anyway, what's up, guys? How was your weekend?
What's up with you,
Great.
Matt?
We were here, Matt.
Yep.
I was not here. I was watching the Broncos get their first win, so that was fun for me. I believe they might be better than the Cowboys at this point. The Cowboys are just awful. But we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk all about the Cowboys, talk about UTSA beating Houston Christian, maybe a win like that, getting their season going in the right direction. Plus, high school hype squad for Week 5. Got a good matchup this week between Stevens and Taft, so we'll talk about that a little bit, plus TNL Top 10. Disappointing loss for Steele, so we'll get into all that and more. I want to get to our trivia question first. Has to do with the Cowboys. Obviously, with the loss to the Ravens, the Cowboys start their season 0-2 at home for the first time since when? 0-2 at home for the first time since when? That's the question. Get to the answer here in a little bit.
Chan Gailey.
That's what I'm thinking.
What year is Chan Gailey?
I don't remember.
We'll get to it here in a little bit. I wanted
Dave Campos.
I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a stumper today. So if you get this right, though, that'd be good. If you watched Maximum Sports on Friday, this past Friday, you would know the answer. Just saying. Tune in. Ravens defeat the Cowboys 28-25 in a game that was not as close as the final score indicates. Dallas starts 1-2 for the first time since 2020. And I remember on Thursday and last Monday, we didn't come in with a panic meter very high. I believe you guys each said 1-2. My panic meter is at about a 7 or an 8 for this team because, to me, they lost this game 6 months ago, not yesterday.
Yeah, that makes sense because they didn't address the two big problems, running the football and stopping the run. We're hearing that everywhere, right? We're hearing it at UT. We're hearing it Jeff Traylor. We're hearing it in the pros. If you want to have a dominant football team, you got to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. You got to run the football, and you got to stop the run. The Cowboys did absolutely nothing to get better at running the football. Perhaps got worse, letting Pollard go, signing Zeke, counting on Dowdle, running back by committee. We haven't seen Dalvin Cook, and stopping the run. Is Mozzie Smith on the team? I know they drafted a guy. They went out and Jordan Phillips got hurt, so they went out and got Carlos Watkins.
Linville Joseph.
Come on. I mean, they think that it's just magically going to happen. And all this business about, we're right there, we just need to stay in our gaps. No, they don't have the talent. They don't have the talent to stop the run. And although 13 playing yesterday a lot more snaps, he was all over the place.
He was.
And for all of Micah Parsons' bravado, and I know he's been really good early in his career, he's not popping to me on tape. I'm not seeing a lot of Micah Parsons plays. When he was chasing Lamar Jackson yesterday, Jackson was faster and outrunning him. Not impressed with 11. For as much talking as he's doing, he needs to play better too.
Chuck?
Yeah, I think they're probably not as deep in the middle of that defensive line as they had hoped they would be going into the season. They sure showed out. The whole group did Week 1, but they've been really, really bad, like sieve bad, obviously, these last 2 weeks. I mean, it just looks like there's no resistance, and these last two teams have kind of lined up and gone right down the field. And I saw a couple of cut-ups where, especially on the Lamar Jackson touchdown early, where 13 and 11 were both going to the running back. Like, these guys are doing everything they can to try to get in there and stop the run because they know that they're going to have to commit more bodies to doing it. But while that's going on, you've got an elite-level quarterback that can rip that RPO and get outside, do whatever he wants to do. I mean, it's a mess, to say the least, right now. And I'm with you. That score was in no way indicative of what went on that football game yesterday. And I think my biggest takeaway is going to be Lamar Jackson after the game talking about we didn't keep our foot on the gas. You know, we basically played to run out the clock. And then he was also pissed, you could tell on the plane ride home, that they should have really, really stuck it to the Cowboys, because even with as bad as that defense was yesterday, there was a chance that they could go and steal a game at home. And so I think for the Ravens, they probably learned a lesson from that game yesterday too. But to your point about this having been won and lost in the offseason, I don't think that that's not accurate, because it was. But what I have a problem with is this notion that, you know, well, we should have signed Dak earlier. We should have signed CD earlier. We should have done all this stuff earlier, when we know for a fact that these agents, talking about 88s in particular, were talking with the agent of the guy in Minnesota and the guy in Cincinnati. And these guys are setting the market, right? And they're not going to sign until they're ready to get exactly what they're looking for. So now, bigger problem is you've got all your guys under contract. Whether you got them late or early, this was going to be the same problem, I would argue, regardless. Now what? Yes, you can't go get a star running back during the offseason, because the money's not only spoken for this year, it's spoken for next year and the year after. It's going to lighten up a little bit because now these guys are under contract. But ultimately, they're just kicking this can further down the road, like they would have had they not re-signed Dak. There would have been $40 million in dead money underneath the cap. Their hands were tied in a lot of ways because of the previous deal to Dak. So, you know, at some point, I think fans are going to have to move past this. We didn't sign this guy. We didn't do this. This needs to be on the players that they do have on the field, and that's, to me, where most of the negative inertia belongs, especially after getting their butts whooped 2 weeks in a row on defense.
Here's why I disagree with you. The guys that they put on the field are decent enough to beat teams like the Giants. The teams that you play, the Ravens, the Niners, the Packers, everybody else, you can't beat those teams because the front office has set this team and this coaching staff up to fail. If you got did you know that they have $24 million in cap right now?
Yeah,
$24 million.
Is that for this year, or is it
That's
for
for
next
this year? This year, they have $24 million because they've restructured Dak's deal after he re-signed. They restructured and got some money off of CD's deal. They restructured some other guys. Now they have $24 million. Those deals, those things could have been done in March. But because you didn't do them in March, you now have Jerry saying, oh, we can't afford Derrick Henry because he was $9 million guaranteed. Well, you have a third-string quarterback who's $5.3 million guaranteed, and then you had to pay a signing bonus to Dak for $5 million in March. That's $10 million right there that you can save and should have and could have given to Derrick Henry.
Do you
the frustration there is real.
Do you think Derrick Henry would have made a difference yesterday in that football game?
Absolutely. I think that their running back situation is much bigger than a lot of people are saying.
That's fair. I mean, to this point, I can't argue against that. But if that had been a back and forth football game, the Cowboys would have lost that game yesterday.
But also to the
paragraph.
It's not just Derrick Henry. It's guys that can help on your D line. It's guys that you can come in and get someone who's 6'4" and 330 that can help you actually stuff the run, or a linebacker that is rangy and can move back and forth. Obviously, Overshown is, but he's the second-year player coming off an ACL injury. So it's that $24 million could have been put to good use this offseason, and they didn't have it because they didn't re-sign their guys when they could. It's front office malpractice this offseason, and that's what led to these losses, and we shouldn't be surprised by these losses anymore.
Well, I think going into the season, we knew that there was a talent deficit on this roster. They shine at 3 positions. You know, they got a great linebacker, they got a great receiver, and they got a great quarterback. But the rest of their team is either young and could be great. I mean, 60 could be a great player someday. And 13 could be a really good player someday. 21 will be a good player someday when he learns not to try to tackle Derrick Henry. Did you see Henry just manhandle Caden Carson? You just throw him to the turf like he was a 4th grader.
Derrick Henry's 6'3", 250.
He's
at running back.
He does that to a lot of people.
He does.
He could do that to me.
They had every one of their guys running the football yesterday had a over 6 yards per carry. I'm talking about the 3 big guys, the 2 running backs and the quarterback. So no matter who was going to run the ball yesterday
For the Cowboys, right.
was going to be had a good day.
But the Cowboys,
We'll just leave it at that.
But that's true. That's true. That's two things can be true, and that's why we're talking about both of them. You got to stop the run. You got to run the football, and the Cowboys have a huge problem running the football. They can't run the football, and that's putting their offense in tough spots.
And why I say it's malpractice by the general manager and by the front office is because you knew those were problems coming into the season, and you did nothing to fix it in the offseason.
They were all in.
All in on a
the
1-2
young guys.
record and not being able to do
Rico
anything.
Dowdle's going to be Derrick Henry. What are you talking about?
I don't even get me started on the all-in thing. It's just when you come into a season and you can't do anything that you didn't fix anything. The reason that you lost that Green Bay game is because you couldn't stop the run and you couldn't run the football, on top of a lot of other things, as you well know.
No, you're right.
But when you come into this season and those are still your 2 biggest issues, you're either your coaching staff or your front office didn't do their job. And in this case, it's the front office.
Well, we heard it all off season. The rumblings from people like Clarence and writers up in Dallas that McCarthy felt like he was being set up to fail, and there were some real frustrations from the coaching staff about the lack of addressing the needs of the roster. So I don't think we should be surprised.
Well, it's a long season. It's week 3, and we're acting as though nothing is going to get fixed from this point on, or from last week to this week. And maybe that's true. Maybe it doesn't happen. But let's see. I mean, part of McCarthy's genius, in my opinion, over the years is he's gotten the most out of younger players, especially by about the midway point in the season to then the end of the season, to coaching up guys. And that's part of what Zimmer was brought in to do, and part of what McCarthy has to now prove again based on what they have on their roster. They've got the highest paid quarterback. They've got the second paid highest receiver. They got a guy, 11, that's going to be paid in that realm in terms of highest paid non-quarterbacks in football. How do you squeeze all those guys in? Because fans are rumbling and, all the other stuff that's going along with not having CD and Dak signed and blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is their bed. They've chosen this path. They're putting their eggs in very few baskets, and now it's up to those other little baskets to get along with the program.
What I think fans need to realize now is that this is going to be the norm. You have 3 guys, once Micah's signed, you have 3 guys that are going to be taking up almost all of your salary cap, half of your salary cap. So you have to skimp everywhere else to make sure that those guys are paid. And if you want depth on your roster, you have to hit on 100% of your draft picks from here to the end of Dak's contract. If you don't hit on them, you're going to have gaps like this in your team and in the talent of your team. Your defensive line is going to get hurt or is going to be lacking. Your offensive line is going to be relying on rookies like Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton, who might be good, but you might not even be able to re-sign those guys in 4 years because of these deals. This is what the Cowboys are now and will be for the next 4.5 years.
That's fair.
And the youth is rearing its ugly head. So my question is, who was Dak talking about on the podium? We got 2, or do we have a dissension problem? You got Micah going after D-Law and the rest of the defense on the sidelines, and D-Law is coming back with him with shut the blank up over and over again. Those 2 are going at it. Then Dak on the podium says we have a lack of professionalism. Guys are not spending time at the facility watching tape. They don't know what it's like to be a professional. Guys are missing their – is he talking about CD? Because he's talking about know your routes, know your adjustments. CD is the one pouting and whining like a 2-year-old the whole game with his body language. So there's all this body language / lack of professionalism. McCarthy addressed it too. Like, guys are not taking their jobs seriously. We have a growing pains problem. We have a youth problem.
It definitely sounds like splintering.
It's a culture problem. And that's been there for a while.
I don't know if that's been there for a while. I mean, it might be going on now because I think you're right with what you saw yesterday because I saw the same things. But, again, 88 doesn't have a training camp. And, boy, did he have a bad game yesterday. So I'm not saying that he's not, allowed to have a bad game every now and then. But if he's making all the money, Why did 9 look like the best receiver on the field yesterday?
Dak went away from him, and that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if when Dak's talking about everything that he talked about on the podium, if he's talking about CD. I don't know, but he's saying, it's about being in, spending the time in the film, spending time at the facility, knowing your routes, knowing the adjustments of the routes. The guy that was bad was 88, and Dak started going to 9. He started going to 1. He started going to 83. He started going to 87. He went to everybody but CD in the second half of that game.
Bob, you got any comments from people?
Well, Gilbert feels the same way. He said there's definitely rumbling on the sideline as well, not just with the fans. Then after Chuck said he wasn't sure if there's been rumbling for a while, he goes, "No, it's definitely been there." So he is,
What, in the locker room, that there's been dissension and unprofessionalism in the locker room? No, I would disagree with that 100%. And that's okay if somebody wants to push back on that, but no, I don't see that at all. I haven't seen that up to this point.
Well, there was all the culture talk after the Green Bay loss because of CD's parents or whoever was tweeting, and
Micah's brother.
And so there's 2 weeks on ESPN where they talked about the Cowboys having a culture issue because that's the kind of stuff that should be kept in house. I don't know that it was the players. It could have just been family. But if CD's mom is saying Dak ain't it, then where's she getting that from?
One more, Bob.
Andrew says Coach McCarthy and Zimmer need to go.
I mean, they probably will be after the season, but all right.
And then just to top it off, we got the no Jerry Jones as general manager doesn't know what to do. I think
he shouldn't have been. He should have relinquished that role like 20 years ago. But here we are. I'm not going to be surprised when they win on Thursday. They're probably going to kill the Giants because that's just what the Cowboys do. They kill the Giants, but then they go on and they have the Lions coming up. They have the Niners coming up. They're staring 3-5 in the face, and it's going to be a long, long season if that happens. Answer to the trivia question real quick. Trivia question one more time was, with the loss to the Ravens, the Cowboys start their season 0-2 at home for the first time since when? Got a guess?
2010.
2011.
2009-2010 season is the correct
nice.
answer. So I'll give it to you. The Wade Phillips year. One of the Wade Phillips
Jerry.
years. I think it was 2 seasons. What was that? 2 seasons after Tony fumbled against the Seahawks in the playoffs. 2009-2010 season. The first is the last time they went 0-2. Started the season 0-2. That was a 6-10 year, and then before that, I think it was 2001 was the last time. So now 3 times in the last 22 seasons or 22 years they have gone 0-2 at home to start the season. So let's get to UTSA and Houston Christian real quick. UTSA defeated Houston Christian 45-7. Obviously, that's not a surprise. The line on the game was 35.5. I think it was just good to see them kind of clicking on all cylinders for a game, and I think it can give them some confidence. How do you guys think that can kind of propel them into conference play as they go into ECU this week?
What's the line at ECU?
I don't know. Actually, I can look.
I don't know that it propels them. That's going to be a tough game to win.
ECU. First of all, I watched the entire ECU Liberty game because it was delayed by like 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So I was finally home and I was watching it. ECU should have won that ball game. They can't stop a corner route to save their lives, but they should have won that ball game against Liberty. They're a good team.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chuck? Does UTSA get a little bit of a boost from this?
I think so. I mean, because, for whatever anybody thinks of Houston Christian, they scored 70 points the week before, I believe. So to go out knowing that you had to show some growth, I think, on the field and off the field, maybe for your own mental psyche going into this, you showed that you can dominate another team. It's the same thing I thought about Texas the other night. Maybe a little bit of a slow start in their game, but now, there's something to be said about handling your business and handling your business well. When you know that, maybe you haven't put your best foot forward and that you're trying to gain some momentum and see some growth as you go into the gauntlet part of your schedule. So, good for UTSA. And, yeah, I think they did make some growth. Again, the other guys are getting paid too, literally and figuratively.
Guess the line. Guess the line in that game, ECU, UTSA. It's a 3:00 kick in ECU.
9 ECU giving UTSA 9.
9?
Yeah,
That's a lot. You gonna say pick?
Yeah.
4. 4 is the line on that game, which is a little bit closer than I thought it would be. Actually, I would say it would be like a 6.5 point because ECU's played a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. Someone who is going to give Jeff Traylor a lot of credit give ECU a lot of credit is Jeff Traylor. Let's hear from him what he said on about ECU Saturday.
I don't know that we're quite ready to go up there and do that yet, but we've got to find a way to go up there and do that. And I want to give my kids every opportunity because we've been cleaner at home twice and haven't been so good on the road. And we've got an extremely tough opponent that we have a ton of respect for, and it'll be an absolute slobber knocker up there.
I had to include the slobber knocker part.
It's classic.
Coach tomfoolery.
It's going to be a really good game, I think. But I do think that seeing success on the field, no matter who you're playing, whether it's Houston Christian or Texas or whatever, can give you confidence going into this. Do you guys think that they're ready for this AAC conference to start their conference play?
Yeah, they're ready. They're going to be good this year. I think ECU is really, really good, and being on the road is tough. The McCown kid's been good the last 2 weeks. He was decent against Texas, and he's shown growth. I mean, he was really bad against Texas State, and he's been better since
horrible.
then. And he was
Whole team was horrible.
good this week. He was like Chuck said. You want to show that you can do what you're supposed to do, and he did that. His rhythm's better. His timing's better. And don't forget, this kid completed 15 balls in a row at Tennessee last year in a tough environment with 105,000 people there. So it won't be him. It's whether or not they can protect him. And Mekhi Hart's getting back and playing a lot more
JT
snaps.
Clark might come back.
Vinley's back. I don't think JT's going to be back this week, but
Soon.
we'll see.
Maybe after the bye.
Yeah, maybe after the bye.
Chuck, what do you think going into AAC play?
I'm in a kind of see it mode.
Need to
right
see it to
now.
believe it.
Let's watch the East Carolina game, see what comes of it. I think it's going to be a good game, and then we'll see if they can find some magic maybe towards the end of the game because to be in a close game, I think at this point is going to prove a lot going forward if they can find a way to win one late, and then maybe if they see it themselves, maybe that's the inertia that propels them the rest of the year.
My thing is that you get basically the 4 easiest opponents left on your schedule over the next 5 weeks. You get ECU, then a bye, then you're at Rice, who is just bad. They're just a very bad team. FAU just got rolled by, I want to say it was an FCS team, one of the worst teams in college football this past week, and then they're at Tulsa. So that's a 4-0 schedule if you can take advantage of the games, if you can do the right things, if you can do all the little things that Coach Traylor always talks about. If you can do it, you start AAC 4-0, and then you go have Memphis come into the Alamo Dome, and that's going to be a huge game, even though Memphis lost this past weekend, which was surprising to Navy.
The other takeaway for me with this team is the amount of true freshmen that Traylor's playing. I mean, he's got 5 running backs, right? I mean, we've all seen Robert Henry. We've all seen
Brandon High is really good.
Yeah, he's playing Brandon High. The kid, the Jamel Hardy kid with the catch, he reminds you of JT. He's got recruits, some transfers, but a lot of really young guys. Willie McCoy and Devin McCune are both sophomores. Jeff Traylor just keeps adding talent to this team. I thought we could see Kavorian Barnes, Robert Henry, Rocco Griffin all year long. Now we're seeing Henderson and Brandon High. These kids are fast as lightning, true freshmen that can play.
They're also different backs. Like I feel like Rocco and Robert and Kavorian are all very similar backs. One cut, get up the field. Brandon High is a different change of pace, which is kind of nice for that running game, especially if you're trying to run the outside zone, the stretch, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think some of this is, too, they're experimenting a little bit, right? Want to see who can play and who can't, who you're going to go forward with.
Don't get any more experiment time. It's conference play now.
It's time to go.
So it's time to go. Yep. You play who can play at this point. Let's get to the high school hype squad. So we're going to do high school football for the rest of the time here, one of my favorite times of the entire week. TNL top 10 for week 5. I have a problem with Carlos once again. Steele lost. Ended up losing to Westlake, which we'll get into here in a second. But he dropped them from 1 to 3 when I think all of us know that if Steele played any team in our region, they would probably win by multiple touchdowns.
Not if they played like they did the other night.
Yeah, let's talk about the Westlake game. So they lost to Westlake 41 to 16. They did not play well. They went up 10-3 in that ball game because the Oklahoma recruit Jonathan Hatton ripped off a 75-yarder to start the game. There was no good offense for them the rest of the first half at the very least. Don?
I don't want to beat up on a high school kid, but there's a lot of inaccuracy in the passing game. I watched the first half. I watched most of the game, and it was they were out of sync. You can give Westlake some credit for that, but a lot of the throws were just behind receivers, overthrown, and to me, I was surprised they didn't target their best two guys,
Royal and Jalen.
Capel and Cooper.
Yeah, Jalen Cooper.
Yeah, they were going to number one, a little kid. I don't know, but they kept going to him time after time, and missing him. A lot of easy throws that were missed. So they were rattled.
Chuck? Were you surprised at all by the final score of that game? Because I think going in, we were like, all right, we're going to see if Steele has what it takes to maybe make some noise in the 6A playoffs. And after that performance, I think it shook my confidence in them just a tad.
I think Westlake Wright coming off a loss too, and I'm sure there was a little more motivation for them at this point. Let's see how they respond going forward. You obviously know what this might look like if you get deep into the playoffs, and so they're going to have to be better and maybe have to play differently. But again, I just don't know, where's the motivation coming from every week? If you're Steele at this point, maybe that was a big picture wake-up call, because you're right. I think around here, they're pretty much going to have a lot of success around here.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like a Houston Cougars run and shoot that puts up 70 points, against a Michigan Big Ten team. And Westlake just smash-mouthed
Out-physical them.
Yeah, won the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, just pounded it down their throat. There was no stopping them. And then the pressure they got on Warner from the defensive front, they were just bigger, stronger, faster to me.
One other surprise we'll get to here in a little bit, but Smith Valley beating Bernie Champion 42-10 was also pretty eye-opening to me, especially because we know Blaine Ellis's squad is always up for the task there. So let's get right into the TNL Top 10. Piper, number one this week. I don't blame us putting Piper number one. They might be the best 5A team in the state. I think they're 9 right now, or 11 in the Campbell rankings. They're playing Smith Valley this week. It's going to be 2 of the top 16 teams in the state for 5A D1, and it's going to be just a banger this week in Piper. I'm pretty excited to see that game.
At the University of Piper.
University of Piper.
God, man, that place is awesome.
Piper, I feel like we say this every week. Nick Rogers and that team is just unconscionably good.
Nick Rogers is a heck of a coach.
Absolutely. Alamo Heights, we saw pretty up close and personal this past week. It was a real treat for all of us, I think, seeing Michael Terry III in person and seeing just what kind of Texas Longhorn he's going to be. Yeah. What'd you guys think of Terry, and what'd you guys think of Alamo Heights this past week? They were on TNL this week. They beat Clemens 38-19, if anybody didn't see that.
The thing that impressed me most about Terry is that he's loving high school football. He embraces physicality. He's not protecting anything for the future. He's running the ball hard. He embraces contact. He looks for contact. Just a great teammate, and will versatile. Will play anywhere.
Yeah, I thought what was really cool too was that, Michael Terry's a great player. I think we already knew that going in, right? They got some other dudes too, right? Not
DK
just
Garza
Michael
too.
Terry.
DK Garza's really good. He's going to be a good back next year. This year too, but next year when there's no more Terry and they got to figure out some other things to do.
Heck of a safety too.
Absolutely. I was impressed by that whole. Also, Orem and Alamo Heights is going to be really, really nice in 2 years once that high school is built. Once they finish it all up, it's going to be lovely. We already talked about Steele a little bit. They play Clemens 7 o'clock at Lenhoff. They enter district play now. After seeing Clemens last week, I don't know how that game's really going to go because Clemens has so many injuries on their team. Chuck, real quick, tell us a little bit about Clemens and what they're dealing with, because obviously on Thursday there was a kid that literally had his foot run over the morning of and still ended up playing in the game. They've just kind of had a run of really bad luck there.
Yeah, and that's kind of, in a microcosm, and maybe this is a horrible connect, but, just bouncing back no matter what comes your way. They even had a coach get sprayed by a skunk that morning too, I found out. So, it's just, it seemed like everything not going Clemens' way, but, bigger picture, the fact that they've lost 2 of their varsity players to death in the last 7 months. One of their players' mom passed away this week, and that young man still went out and played a football game on Thursday night. big picture stuff that really has nothing to do with X's and O's or who wins the scoreboard or any of that. I mean, the fact that the Clemens kids and coaching staff and the whole community is having to kind of rally around each other through the face of unbelievable adversity is it's really a strong tip of the cap to them. And then also, kind of a lesson for us all that, you have to keep persevering and do the best you can and pick up those around you. And then hopefully there are people around you that can pick you up when you need it too.
How's the Rodney Atkins song go? If you're going through hell, just keep on going.
That's right.
Something like that.
And the other thing that it reminds us of is just how lucky we are in San Antonio to have in the whole state, to have the kind of coaches that we have who embrace their roles in people's lives as more than X's and O's in a game. It's something that D.W. Rutledge brought to the Texas Coaches Association with the Coaching to Change Lives philosophy. It's a curriculum that these guys have to take, just like you get a master's degree. And these men are invested in the lives of these 17-year-old kids that are knuckleheads a lot of the time and making them men and responsible citizens and are there in emergencies when you lose somebody in the family or something like that. So hats off to Alan Hill and that whole staff and what they mean to their players.
Absolutely. Can't say it any better than that. Fourth team in our TNL top 10 is Southwest. Southwest, they are 4-0 now. They beat Laredo Martin 45-0. What are you doing over there, Luis?
I went to Martin.
Oh, Luis went to Martin. Sorry, Luis. This is the first time since the 09-10 season that Southwest has started 4-0. They went undefeated that regular season, ended up losing the first round of the playoffs. So tip of the cap to everybody down there at Southwest. Brennan now 3-1, 2-0 in district play after they beat Harlan 51-14. Brennan getting a little bit of revenge after last season. Harlan getting the first win in that series last season on TNL. Great game we had last year on TNL. This year, 51-14, Brennan coming out and making a statement in their district.
I would say so, right?
Yeah.
Especially where they started the season.
Yeah.
And then to beat Harlan, not just beat them, but to beat them like that, I'd say that might be one of those teams that ultimately, you got to look at down the road and go, okay, wow, this team's really made a lot of progress.
They're racking up some impressive wins, too. You shut out Soto, you beat Smithson Valley, and then you kill Harlan the way that they did this past
Not a
weekend.
surprise with Steve Baser.
It's the same script as last year. It's like you lose big in week one, and then you slowly get better throughout the entire season, which is why it's so hard to not overreact, but you can't overreact, especially in the non-con play for these high schools, and really for football at every level. Exactly. Yeah. Smithson Valley beating Bernie Champion 42-10. That was a little surprising to me. They're now 3-1. They're 6th in our TNL top 10 poll. Like we said, they play Piper this week. Larry Hill is going to have his guys ready to roll for that matchup because that could easily decide, one, that district, but two, how seeding goes in the playoffs because both of those teams are going to make it. John Jay, I'm going to breeze through these last four here so we can get to the TNL matchup of the week. John Jay is 4-0 now. They are number 7 in our TNL top 10 poll. They defeated Southwest Legacy in a score you don't see very often, 9-3 this past week. Once again, Gary Gutierrez has his team purring as usual. They play Eagle Pass Win Friday 7:30. Brandeis had a bye this week. They're starting conference play this week. They play Johnson on Saturday. That's going to be a really good game, seeing how Johnson bounces back after their loss a couple weeks ago. New Braunfels, once again, destroying an opponent. Brad Mulder doing a great job up there in his first season.
Indeed.
Beats MacArthur 62-0.
Wow.
And they're 3-1, 1-0 in district now, and they play Victoria East Friday at 7. And then number 10 is a team that we're going to see on TNL this week. Taft is number 10. They beat Holmes 56-29. I was at that game to shoot it for us. They pulled out this 4 lateral trick play that literally started to the running back. Running back goes on the wheel. They toss it back to the quarterback, a little flea flicker type thing. It was actually a really well-designed play.
Cool.
It's one of our plays of the week.
Nominee.
One of our plays of the week nominee. You can go to news4.com, news4sa.com and vote for that. TNL matchup of the week, guys. So we got Taft and Stevens. Maybe not the most highly anticipated matchup, but still a good one nonetheless, especially for a district play game. Ricky Stade, Chuck, has been there for a few years now. What do you get with a Ricky Stade coach team?
Well, this year you're getting they're going back to their culture roots. He really wanted to concentrate on rebuilding what he brought when he got there, really make an emphasis on, making sure they're behaving, playing, everything that goes along with being a Taft football player the way they did when they came up. And I think the most fascinating thing about Stade and what he's done is there have been a bunch of his coaches that started with him here that have now gone to other schools that are doing the same thing and are automatically seeing the results. So, if I wanted a guy to come in and build culture or even rebuild culture, I think this would be the guy that I would immediately look to right off the bat. He could flip it.
Both guys. Boykin's the same
Yep.
way. Boykin's, man, I got an opportunity to hear him speak. He's a motivational speaker. And I wanted to just jump up and run out of the room and do something.
Go through a brick wall real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. And the way that he goes about every single day with his kids on the field and off. If I'm a parent, I'd want my kid playing for Anthony Boykin.
Let's hear from Coach Ricky Stade first before we get to Mr. Boykin.
Before the season started to now, you're 3-1. What have you learned about these young men that you're coaching that maybe you didn't know heading into game one of the season?
I don't know if I didn't know it, but I learned that we can fight. I learned that we can handle some adversity because we've been in some crazy games, a lot of that because of our own doing. But we always find a way to continue to fight, and I'm proud of them for that.
It seems like since the Eagle Pass game, it was like you guys have really kind of started to go ahead and find your rhythm. Are you kind of seeing that the rhythm, the offense is starting to come together, the defense is starting to play a lot better? Are you starting to see that on film?
We finally put two halves together of football last week against Holmes, which we hadn't done all year, and that was the ask. Obviously, is we've had some good first halves and some bad second halves and so forth. So we were just excited to put two together and play a cleaner game, both offensively and defensively.
What are going to be some of the biggest challenges now that you're going to face against the Stevens team, which record-wise doesn't look good, but they've still got the athletes over there, and it's still a good game?
The style of play, they're going to make it ugly, going to muddy it up on offense and try to drag you into their type of game. And we got to play our game at the end of the day, and no matter what they do, we've got to dictate the circumstances and the way things go.
And obviously you're no stranger to this, but on TNL, everybody gets to see Taft football again and what that brings. And how special is that for you guys?
Super excited. Great opportunity for the program, for the community, for these kids. It's just, to be on TV, it brings a little extra juice to the game, to the kids. And so, you know what, we're always ready to go out there and put on a show.
Always good to hear from Coach Stade. As far as Stevens goes, I almost kicked over my water. That would have been bad. As far as Stevens go, they're coming off a bye. They're 1-2. They beat Holmes 2 weeks ago as well, so one common opponent for these guys. How helpful is a bye in it's kind of in high school when you kind of had 2 weeks to prepare, one mentally for district play, but two for one opponent as you guys are coming in?
Well, also if you're 1-2, I think it's helpful to reset, and I think that could be beneficial for them.
Yeah, I like the fact that you get more days of practice, right? You get to really fine-tune, and then you get another week to fine-tune, and maybe, have a really good hard scrimmage against yourself that first week. So always a lot of benefits. And then, too, it's kind of how most of these teams measure the season, right? In the NFL, they're doing it every 4 games. We'll sit back after the 4 games. Where are we at? Where do we need to get better? Where do we need to improve? Those kinds of things. It's the same thing on the high school level. Now they're going to come fast and furious, and you got to play at your best. And the ones that do are going to be the ones that punch their ticket to the postseason.
Let's hear from Coach Anthony Boykin over at Stevens.
You played 3 games. What have you learned about your young men after 3 games that you didn't maybe know about them going into week 1?
Yeah, there's some, as you go through the course of a season, there's actually a lot of lessons that you learn. Off season, you try to, build a system in place, but until you're actually in the heat of battle, there's some things that you still have to figure out. So, probably one of the biggest things we learned was that we're actually pretty physical at the point of attack with the offensive line. Which was a pleasant surprise for us. We had some seniors returning. We had others who hadn't played before, so they've shown that they can, come off the football. Defensively, the ability to track and tackle has still been a process to tackle consistently. We've gotten better since week 1. It's a key. It's still a blocking and tackling game, so that's what I talk about with the kids all the time. So those are probably the 2 basic things that we've learned through these first 3 games.
Are you starting to see all of the fruits of the labor of the fall camp, the summer workouts? Is everything now starting, it seems like, starting to come together for especially on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think so. We were disappointed in our production week 1, but it's gotten better week 2 and then definitely into week 3. So hopefully we'll continue through this. We call it the district tournament. We play in the SEC. The North Side is tough, but we've gotten better each week.
Obviously, you guys are worried about the game. Television is a secondary type thing for you guys, but it does get a chance to showcase Stevens community, and everything that you guys are all about. What does that mean for you guys, for this team, for this community?
Yeah, it's a neat deal. We appreciate you guys, showcasing all the kids' talents. It's big for our community. The community really supports Falcon football. They take pride in it. There'll be a big crowd on Thursday night. The kids are excited about it. And we play a great opponent. Taft is really good. They're really well coached. And so it'll be an exciting night.
Great speaker there, Anthony Boykin. You were right, Don. He does speak extremely well.
Man, he's got a motivational talk that he talks about motivating kids. And he was motivating other coaches where I saw him. And he was talking about if you can't be up for every day, then you're doing the kids a disservice. And he was talking about to the coaches about, you got stuff going on at home, you got this going on, but about what you have to deliver every single day to the kids, whether they're in the locker room, whether they're going to class, whatever. And it was. I think everybody in the room when he was done, standing O. He was really, really good. He could be a preacher if he wasn't a football coach.
He missed his calling.
Yeah.
No, he's in the right spot. This is a guy who loves football and he loves those kids, and I'm looking forward to Thursday night.
Thursday night's going to be really fun. That's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll be back on Thursday to preview what could be the last game we care about of the Cowboys season if they lose to the Giants. If not, we'll see you then.
It's a long year.